This is Garrett. It is 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm tired. I'll talk a little bit quiet. This video is called I Can't Handle This. I just can't handle this. I want to tell you two separate stories, and I'm going to give you the very, very short versions. So each story might take about 2 minutes. And at the end of the video, I want to ask you a question, okay? Okay, one more time. This video is called I Can't Handle This. All right, here's the first story. So listen carefully. A little baby girl was born here in the USA. And when she was about 3 years old, her dad and brother and uncle would rape her and sexually abuse her on a semi-regular basis. All of them. And she was abused very, very badly. And this went on for years and years. Then, when she was a young teenager, she ran away from home because she had to. And although she was only 13 or 14, she got a brand new boyfriend. Her boyfriend was 25. And he took her off the streets into his apartment. And this boyfriend got her into witchcraft and magic, while at the same time him and his friends were sexually abusing her. This went on for a little while. She got a little bit older, and she had to run away, and she was homeless, and she was living on the streets. She was 19, 20, or 21, and she had to what's the right word to use? She had to become a hooker so she could buy her food every day, cigarettes, alcohol. And if she had a really busy night, she could get a motel room for herself so she could take a shower and go to bed. If she had a busy night as far as getting clients, getting clientele. One night, she had a male client while she was working the streets, and one thing led to another, and she was beaten up real badly, and the client and his friends, they abused her real badly. A little bit later, she was still homeless, working on the streets. And at this point, she was as skinny as a toothpick. She wasn't eating. And she had all kinds of addictions. And she got a client one night. And she ended up marrying him. He was much, much, much older. And this client, her husband, would pimp her out to other men and women and couples and groups and make money off of her. Yeah, her husband was doing this. And during this time, many times she would get very sick. And she had a terrible cough all the time. And she was hooked on drugs and cigarettes and alcohol. And her spiritual life basically would be based off of black magic and anger and frustration and hurt and rage. And she was disenchanted, and she was afraid, and she had anxiety and depression and despair and hopelessness. And this went on for a while. A little bit later, her husband divorced her and kicked her out. And she got real sick and went to the hospital. She was homeless. She got real sick, went to the hospital. And they put her into a mental institution and started giving her powerful drugs. But it didn't end there. Her mom and dad were contacted, and after a little while they came and got her and brought her back home. And she got arthritis. She's now much older. She's in her 40s. No spiritual life at all. The world used her and abused her for 40, 45 years now. And she got cancer, and she died a terrible death. Just a slow, really terrible death. And she died a non-believer. And she would be in hell now. You see, nobody ever talked to her about Jesus. Nobody. Even when she died at about 52, 53 years old, nobody talked to her about Jesus. Nobody. And in hell, she's possibly being burned by fire, or possibly being raped by the demons. Yes, there is raping in hell. I have a friend who went there for one night, back and forth, just incredible. And he told me about it, and there was raping going on in hell. So just great, just wonderful. So she's raped and abused and used and treated badly her entire life here on earth. And now she's in hell, either being burned or raped or cut or stabbed or beaten and all kinds of other things that I don't want to mention that I know about. And I can't handle this. I just can't. I can't handle this. Now you might be thinking, well, Garrett, that's impossible that no one ever mentioned Jesus to her. It's her fault. Someone must have told her about Jesus and what salvation means and what sin means and how God feels about it. Garrett, you're wrong. You're wrong. God would never do that. She must have been told. Well, she wasn't. Can I prove it to you? Nobody on earth ever mentioned Jesus to me or explained what the Bible was about or explained God to me or explained Jesus dying on the cross to me until I was about 34 or 35 years old. I'm talking nobody. Now, I went to a Bible study twice when I was 16, and my friend's dad, remember, we were high school students. We were about 17, actually. And his dad had a Bible study on Friday nights, and girls were there. Yeah, they had girls there, our age. And I went to that twice, but I don't count that because it wasn't the kind of Bible study you might be expecting. So at age 34 or 35 years old, even myself, yes, me, Garrett, I never heard about Jesus, never been in church as far as a service. I didn't know that sinning was real. I didn't know that heaven and hell were real. I didn't know about Jesus on the cross, or that he died for me, or that my sins are offensive to God. I didn't know any of this. So you're actually hearing from someone who didn't hear about this at all deep into his 30s. So now this young girl who was raped and abused and used and torn into pieces by her family, friends, men, pimps, clients on the streets, other homeless people abusing her, addictions, drugs, smoking, drinking, cancer, psychotic medicines, and practicing magic and the occult, and she had a terrible life. She had an absolutely terrible life, and nobody ever told her about Jesus or the Bible or sinning or anything else for that matter. So, at 13 minutes long, I want to ask you a question, and I'll say goodbye. Are you doing anything for the kingdom of God? Are you doing anything at all? I know sometimes we battle loneliness, sometimes we battle depression, that's for sure. Sometimes we battle addictions and all kinds of sinning. But I want to ask you a question. Are you doing anything at all to help people? You see, because I can't handle this. I just cannot handle this. I cannot handle what's happening to people. I can't handle this. All right, I want to say goodbye. Are you doing anything to help someone? Are you doing anything at all? Okay, everybody, good night.